Hello from Interhaptics. In this tutorial, we will go step by step creating an XR project in Unity for the MetaQuest. For time considerations, we will cut the loading assets part, which can take quite long, while keeping the same steps as when creating a project from A to Z. I have chosen the VR Core sample, so we'll have most of the packages, including the XR plugin manager and its main headset integrations already installed in the project. We will put Oculus instead of OpenXR for both desktop and Android, then switch the platform to Android. Afterwards, we open the package manager to add the Interhaptics Core SDK package, which you can get simply by copying the GitHub address from this video. Be careful at the same time not to have an extra blank space when copying the address, otherwise you might have an error. We can see that we have an XR sample scene which has multiple 3D cubes with different haptic sources. For example, haptic spatial source, event haptic source, audio haptic source, and a special implementation made for XR controllers like the MetaQuest. We will not delve deep into this sample scene, which can be directly played on your Quest headset once the Interhaptics SDK package is imported, as we'll recreate and explain most of its features in a new scene. So, without further ado, let's create a new scene from the sample scene XR. We'll just copy-paste the XR rig in the previous scene, which contains already the basic blocks from the Unity XR system, the main camera and controllers, and also the haptic body parts from the Interhaptics Core SDK package. As you can see, these are tailored for the MetaQuest 2 controllers, but the collider can be changed to other controllers from Meta, like the MetaQuest Pro controllers. Next, we'll add the haptic manager, which is an empty game object in which we add the haptic manager script, which controls the haptics, of course. Next, we'll add the haptic game objects. We'll create the first one to contain a spatial haptic source. We can add it like a normal component from the inspector panel or from the component Interhaptics Spatial Haptic Source. As you can see, the script has added a rigid body component and it needs a haptic material, which we can directly drag and drop from the haptic materials library inside the Interhaptics Core SDK. I choose a haptic material and activate debug mode to receive console messages on trigger / collision, enter and exit. Of course, we set the haptic source to start on trigger enter, so we have to have only one trigger or collision, and that's it. Next, we create a new cube, and for this one, we'll add an event haptic source, which we can add the same way to the game object. For this one as well, we can assign a haptic material from the haptic materials folder. We will choose the pistol shot haptic material, for which we will have an event in which the pistol shot is triggered only on the right meta controller. Here we have to add the haptic body parts, so we'll add only the right controller, which contains the haptic body part for the right hand. We just drag and drop it from the XR rig. Normally, we should have something like a script which tells us when to call this event haptic source. We will use in this case an already existing basic script with onTrigger enter, in which the event haptic source is played with a delay of 2 seconds. And finally, we will create a new cube, and on this one, we will add an audio haptic source. As you can see, adding the audio haptic source adds an audio source to the game object. We will choose one of the sounds from the sounds library corresponding to the haptic materials library. So this one is snare build-up. We uncheck play on awake on the audio source. And next we have to choose the haptic material corresponding to the sound. As you might already know, the Haptic Composer has the ability to create haptic materials directly from sound with the press of just one button. This audio haptic source can be played on awake if we check this variable in the component, or we can add an already existing basic script which will just play and stop the audio haptic source on events. You have already seen that I have added both controllers to play when the audio haptic source is called. This is the existing basic script, and if onTrigger exit is commented out, audio and haptics will continue playing even after exiting the trigger. As we finish setting up the haptics on this XR game objects in the scene, we can just hit play and try these haptic sensations added to the VR scene, which will surely enrich your immersive experiences. For any other feedback or information, we are available at interhaptics.com and on our Discord, in which you can jump right in following the links in the video description. Thank you for following this XR haptics tutorial, and we are waiting for you on this YouTube channel for other tutorials in the weeks to come.